You ever notice how when a woman starts pulling back, it ain't loud, it ain't dramatic, she don't slam the door, she don't throw no dishes, she don't cuss you out, she just gets quiet. She just stops talking like she used to, stops texting like she used to, stops checking in, stops laughing at your jokes. That silence right there, man, that distance, it's louder than any argument you could ever have. When a woman grows quiet, it's not just about the absence of her voice, it's about the storm that's been brewing inside her for a long time. Silence is not her natural state. A woman loves to connect, to communicate, to share what she's feeling, especially with the man she cares about. So when she stops doing that, when the texts slow down, when her laughter becomes rare, when her energy starts to fade around you, that's not just silence. That's her heart retreating into a space where she no longer feels safe or seen. A woman's silence is heavy with meaning. It's not passive. It's not accidental. It's deliberate. It's built from days, weeks, maybe even months of holding in things she didn't want to say because she hoped things would get better without having to spell it out. See, most men hear silence and think it means everything is okay or that it'll pass. But her silence isn't peace. It's the sound of her giving up. It's the sound of her pulling herself out of the emotional labor she's been carrying for too long. She used to ask how your day was. She used to check in. She used to try to make you smile, even when she wasn't smiling herself. But now she just nods. She just says, okay, or I'm fine. But she's not fine, she's exhausted. She's been waiting for something to change, for someone to notice she's been hurting, for someone to match the effort she was pouring into the relationship. Silence becomes her language when words stop working, when the things she says go unheard or dismissed, when her feelings get minimized, when her concerns get turned into complaints. She learns that words don't matter in the space she's in, so she stops using them. She stops asking. She stops explaining. Because nothing hurts more than having to explain why you're hurting to someone who claims to love you but keeps missing the sign. You see, when a woman is in love, she talks. She opens up. She tries to bridge every gap because connection matters deeply to her. She will fight for that connection. She will bend and stretch and even shrink herself to make things work. But the moment she feels like she's the only one fighting, the only one giving, something inside her begins to shift. And that shift is quiet. It's not dramatic. You won't see it on her face immediately. You'll get out of bed and see if I feel something is off. You might not hear it in her tone right away, but slowly the warmth fades. The check-ins stop. The care she used to put into every little gesture disappears. And you're left wondering, what changed? What changed was the weight of feeling alone while being with someone. What changed was the realization that her presence was being taken for granted, that her loyalty was being assumed rather than appreciated. And silence was her way of reclaiming a piece of herself that got lost in trying to be everything for someone who didn't see her slipping. Her silence is a decision not to fight a losing battle, a decision to protect her peace, a decision to speak through absence instead of words that were never heard in the first place. You might still see her, you might still touch her, but if you're not careful, one day you'll wake up and realize she's gone and you never even saw her leave. Because long before a woman leaves physically, she leaves emotionally. And that emotional exit begins with silence. So when she grows quiet, when her energy shifts, when her words disappear, pay attention. Don't wait for the distance to turn permanent. Her silence is not a moment, it's a message. And if you miss that message, you might just lose a woman who tried harder than you'll ever know. Emotional distance from a woman doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It isn't random, it isn't moody behavior, and it definitely isn't something you should ignore. It's a reaction, a defense mechanism. It's a result of things she has felt but couldn't say, things she has noticed but kept quiet about, things she tolerated while hoping they would eventually change. A woman doesn't emotionally shut down overnight. She gets there slowly, step by step, moment by moment, until one day she looks at you with eyes that no longer hold the same softness they used to. She starts protecting herself, because staying emotionally available to someone who doesn't see or appreciate her begins to feel like self-betrayal. She didn't want to become distant. She wanted to stay close. She wanted to keep that connection strong. She wanted to keep giving you all that love, all that support, all that loyalty. But every time she gave, she got a little less in return. Every time she opened her heart, she felt more alone in the relationship. And slowly, her heart started to build a wall. Not out of hate, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Because every time she made herself vulnerable, she felt disappointed, she felt invisible, and she realized that being available to you was starting to cost her peace of mind. So instead of crying every night, instead of explaining her feelings over and over again, instead of begging for your attention or affection, she pulled back, not to punish you, but to protect what little of herself she had left. This distance isn't something she's proud of. She didn't choose it because she stopped caring. She chose it because she cared too much for too long and received too little in return. It's a form of emotional survival. She realized that she couldn't keep showing up fully for someone who kept showing up halfway. So she took her energy back. She started reserving her love. She began pouring into herself the way she had been pouring into you. And if you're not paying attention, you'll think she's being cold or selfish. But really, she's just trying to heal in silence. She's just trying to breathe in a space where she doesn't have to beg to be understood. There's a common mistake people make when they see someone they love pulling away. They assume it's temporary. They assume she'll snap out of it. But when emotional distance sets in, it means she's already told herself a story that ends differently than the one you might think. It means she's already considered the possibility of being without you. Not because she stopped loving you, but because she started loving herself just a little more. She realized that being emotionally connected to someone who doesn't match her energy is slowly draining her. And she decided that her sanity, her joy, and her worth are not worth sacrificing anymore. She didn't want to lose you. She wanted you to show up. She wanted you to listen, to notice, to care enough to ask what's wrong before she had to say it. But when that didn't happen, she chose distance as a way of protecting herself. She chose quiet over conflict. She chose solitude over confusion. And if you think that her being quiet or emotionally distant means she's okay, you're missing the whole point. That distance is the loudest cry for help she's got left. It's her saying, I'm done explaining myself. I'm done asking for the bare minimum. I'm done feeling alone in something that's supposed to make me feel loved. So if you notice her pulling away emotionally, don't wait. Don't brush it off. Don't assume she's just in a mood, because emotional distance is her last attempt to save herself from a relationship that's already been hurting her. And when a woman reaches that point, you better believe she's already halfway out the door. Even if her body is still standing right in front of you. When a woman starts pulling away, it's not the beginning of the problem. It's the result of everything she's already been through. It's not her first reaction. It's her final response. She's not pulling away because she's giving up easily. She's pulling away because she gave it everything she had, and none of it was enough to make her feel seen, heard, or valued. Before she got quiet, she cried. Before she distanced herself, she stayed up nights thinking about how to fix things. She talked to herself about what she could do differently, how she could say things better, how she could make it easier for you to love her the way she needed. She blamed herself for the disconnect. She thought maybe she was too emotional, too needy, too much. But deep down, it wasn't that she wanted too much. It was that she was receiving too little. And slowly, over time, that pain builds. It piles up in the quiet moments. It collects in the spaces where there should have been comfort. But instead, there was confusion. She kept trying, not just for herself, but for the both of you. She kept hoping that one day you'd see it, that one day you'd show her that she mattered just as much to you as you did to her. But it never came. The effort wasn't mutual. The emotional labor wasn't shared. And while she smiled in front of you, she was hurting behind closed doors. Her pulling away isn't spiteful. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. So quiet you might miss it if you're not paying attention. It starts with shorter conversations, with late replies, with less enthusiasm. You'll ask her what's wrong, and she'll say nothing because she's said it all before. You'll feel a shift in her energy, but you might not understand why. It's because she's tired. Tired of carrying the weight of the relationship on her back while pretending everything is fine. Every time, she's tired of explaining her feelings to someone who listens but doesn't change. She's tired of loving you in a way that keeps leaving her empty. When a woman pulls away, it means she's already had the breakdown. She already sat on her bed staring at the phone, wondering if you'd ever call first. She already replayed every argument in her mind, wondering if she was the one who overreacted. She already gave herself every excuse to stay. She waited for you to prove her wrong, to make her feel safe again, to remind her why she chose you in the first place. But when that didn't happen, her heart started protecting itself. And that protection doesn't look like yelling or fighting. It looks like silence, like distance, like the version of her you don't recognize anymore. What you need to understand is that pulling away is her last resort. It's her way of making peace with the fact that she can't keep loving you more than you love her. It's her trying to protect whatever is left of her self-worth because she didn't want to walk away from something she believed in. She didn't want to stop fighting for someone she cared about. But there's only so much fighting one person can do alone. Eventually, she realized that the longer she stayed, the more she lost herself. And losing you was starting to feel less painful than losing her own identity. And so if she starts to pull back, don't wait for her to be completely gone before you notice. That space she's creating is not because she wants to hurt you, it's because she's trying to heal herself. And healing sometimes requires stepping back from what broke her in the first place. If you still care, if you still want to be part of her world, don't ask her why she pulled away. Ask yourself why she had to. Because by the time she stops reaching out, she's already done all the reaching she could. She's already cried, she's already tried, and she already waited far longer than you'll ever realize. A woman's absence doesn't come without a reason. It's not a sudden decision or a random reaction. Her absence, whether physical or emotional, is the result of emotional needs that were ignored, dismissed, or misunderstood over time. She didn't wake up one day and decide to pull away. She stayed for as long as she could. She hoped for as long as it felt possible. She made excuses for your behavior, even blamed herself for feeling the way she did. But eventually, she couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't keep showing up for someone who didn't show up for her in the ways that truly mattered. Her absence is not the problem. It's the symptom. It's the final sign that the connection she craved was no longer there. She needed more than words. She needed actions. She needed consistency. Not grand gestures once in a while, but small efforts that showed you cared. She needed to feel like she mattered when no one was watching. She needed to know that when she was tired, you'd notice. That when she was quiet, you'd ask why. That when she gave, you'd give something back. Not because you had to, but because you wanted to. But instead of feeling fulfilled, she felt forgotten. Instead of feeling supported, she felt like she was carrying everything alone. And it's that quiet, invisible burden that leads to her walking away long before her feet ever moved. You see, emotional needs aren't just about affection or attention. They're about connection, about feeling heard, about knowing that her presence in your life makes a difference. When a woman starts to feel emotionally neglected, she begins to shrink in the relationship. Not because she wants to, but because it's the only way to cope with the emptiness. She still cares, but she stops expressing it. She still wants you, but she stops chasing your time or energy. She still remembers the version of you she fell for, but she doesn't recognize who you've become. And when that disconnect grows too wide, her heart begins to retreat into silence. Her absence is never just about space. It's about emotional survival. It's about creating distance from the pain of feeling unimportant. You might not have noticed the change at first. You might have thought she was just tired, just moody, just stressed. But the truth is, she was slowly withdrawing because the emotional investment she was making wasn't being returned. She laughed less. She needed less, not because she didn't have needs, but because she stopped expecting them to be met. Her absence, whether it's her not calling, not texting, not checking in, is a quiet statement. It's her way of saying, I tried, but it's hurting too much to keep trying. A woman will give chances. She will forgive. She will overlook a lot. But when her emotional needs continue to be unmet, when her feelings continue to be invalidated or pushed aside, she learns to stop hoping. And that's when you lose her. Not when she leaves, But when she no longer feels safe to express what she wants or how she feels, when she's still there physically, but emotionally, she's already gone. That's the version of absence most people miss. Because she may still sit beside you, still share a bed, still smile in photos, but her heart is no longer in it. And it's because everything she needed to feel secure, seen, and supported was never fully given. So when she becomes distant, when her absence starts to feel real, don't just wonder where she went. Ask yourself what part of her was being neglected. Ask yourself what she needed that she stopped asking for. Because a woman doesn't go cold without reason. She goes cold after being warm for too long without anything warming her in return. And by the time her absence feels heavy to you, she's already been carrying that weight for months. Her absence is not the end. It's the proof that the relationship ended emotionally long before it did physically. And the saddest part is she never wanted it to end. She just needed to feel like she mattered. When she stopped feeling that, she started disappearing. When a woman chooses distance, she's not just pulling away from a person, she's pulling away from chaos, confusion, and repeated emotional disappointment. She's not trying to punish you. She's not playing games. She's making a quiet but powerful declaration that she deserves peace. Not promises, not apologies followed by the same behavior, not more sweet words without action, but genuine peace. The kind of peace where her heart doesn't feel like it's constantly fighting to be heard, to be respected, to be loved the right way. That distance is not bitterness, it's healing. It's her reclaiming the energy she spent trying to make things work with someone who only ever gave her half of what she needed. She stayed through a lot more than she talked about. She swallowed feelings, held back tears, smiled through disappointment, and waited for change that never came. She believed in potential. She trusted in love. She gave more chances than most would, but at some point, even the most forgiving woman realizes that peace is not something you beg for. It's something you create for yourself when the chaos becomes too much to carry. And the moment she realizes that the relationship is costing her inner calm, her distance becomes her self-protection. That is her way of saying, I cannot lose myself just to keep someone else. You might think she's being cold or overreacting or making a big deal out of nothing, but to her, it's not nothing. It's everything. It's the nights she laid next to you feeling emotionally alone. It's the conversations that ended in circles. It's the lack of change despite countless second chances. She heard the promises. She wanted to believe them. But after a while, promises lose their power when they aren't followed by action. That's what pushed her into silence, into distance, into a place where she could finally think clearly without the constant noise of disappointment echoing in her mind. Peace doesn't ask for attention, it simply is. And that's what she's searching for. She's not looking for someone to chase her with words. She's looking for someone to understand why she had to walk away in the first place. She wants the kind of love that doesn't feel like a battle, the kind of connection where she's not forced to choose between her love for you and her love for herself. Because the truth is, she never stopped loving you. She just started loving herself more, enough to realize that staying in a place where she didn't feel safe emotionally was doing more harm than good. Her distance is her freedom, her way of breathing again, of remembering who she is without the weight of constant emotional uncertainty. And no, it didn't happen overnight. She had to push through a lot of internal struggle to finally let go of what she once held so tightly. But the peace she finds in that distance, that's the kind of peace she's been praying for. The kind that doesn't depend on someone else changing, but on her making the decision to put herself first. So if you're wondering why she's no longer calling, why she's not fighting anymore, why she seems calm instead of chaotic, it's because she's choosing peace. That's the message behind her distance. Not anger, not resentment, just a quiet truth that her heart deserves more than promises that go nowhere. She deserves consistency. She deserves effort. And most of all, she deserves to feel peace in the place where she lays her heart. If she couldn't find it with you, she had no choice but to find it within herself. And that's why she had to walk away. When you start to feel her slipping away, when her presence starts to feel unfamiliar, when her energy no longer wraps around you the way it used to, that's not the time to chase her body. That's the time to try and understand her soul. Because what's fading isn't just her touch or her voice. What's fading is her emotional connection to you, her sense of safety, her belief that her heart is in good hands. You can't fix that by just holding her tighter. You can't repair that with flowers, gifts, or a sudden rush of affection. What she needs in that moment isn't surface level attention. It's depth. She needs to know that you see her, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. That you feel her pulling away not as a threat, but as a cry for understanding. A woman starts to slip away long before she physically walks out. She begins to retreat when her soul feels unseen, when her thoughts are brushed aside, when her concerns are minimized, when her love is taken for granted. She begins to question her place in your life when she realizes that you notice her absence more than you cherish her presence. And if you only show up when she starts leaving, then you never really showed up for her at all. She doesn't want to be chased when she's walking out the door. She wants to be held close before she ever thinks about leaving. But once she starts slipping, once her spirit begins to drift, it means the foundation has already cracked. You can't reach her by pulling her closer physically if you never tried to meet her emotionally. Because she's not looking for a hand on her waist. She's looking for a hand on her heart. Someone who asks, "How are you really?" and actually listens. Someone who sits with her in silence and still makes her feel understood. Someone who doesn't need a dramatic fight to realize she's been hurting quietly for a long time. When she starts slipping, it's because she's been holding on without help, carrying the emotional weight of the relationship alone while pretending everything was fine. If you really want her back, don't show up with apologies and promises. Show up with awareness. Show up ready to listen, to take responsibility, to understand the layers of her that you never bothered to explore before. Not just the parts that laugh, touch, or smile, but the parts that cry when no one's looking. The parts that feel too much. The parts that go unnoticed. Learn her patterns. Learn her pain. Learn what makes her feel loved and what makes her feel alone, even when she's lying right next to you. Because once she starts to slip, you're not losing her body, you're losing her spirit. And if her soul disconnects, no amount of chasing will bring her back. She doesn't want a reaction, she wants a revelation. She wants to know that you've finally seen her not as someone who's supposed to stay no matter what, but as someone who deserves effort, attention, and real love. If you feel her slipping, don't just ask where she's gone. Ask what you missed while she was still here. What words she stopped saying. What emotions she buried. What needs she stopped expressing because they were always left unmet. You want to keep her, learn her soul, respect her silence, hear what she isn't saying, and love her not just when she's slipping, but especially when she's still standing there, quietly hoping you'll understand her before she disappears. Because the truth is, she doesn't want to be chased. She wants to be understood. And if you miss that, you'll miss her completely.